pals, new year, same old sweater I'm always wearing. Just kidding, it's a different black and red sweater. It has the puzzle box from Hellraiser on it. My spouse bought this for me for Christmas. It's incredible and I've been living in it since Christmas. It is officially 2025 and you know what that means. It is time to go through and talk some shit about some books that I read in 2024. So let's talk about my worst reads of the year. Okay, so I'm gonna go from the 10th worst to the worst, and yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in. Also, hi, if you're new here, I'm Casey. I do all the things your favorite booktubers do. And yeah, so let's just talk about books I fucking hated in 2024. The 10th book on this list is A Spartan Sorrow by Hannah M. Lynn. If you're familiar with the series, you might be like, Casey, but that's book 2 in a trilogy. I'm pretty sure all 3 of these books are like in a trilogy, just in like the sense that they are all part of like the same series, but they do not follow one after another. If I'm wrong and that's why I hate this book, please tell me down below. The genres for this book are Greek mythology / historical fiction. This is, I have notes on my phone for all these books, and I can tell I was in a mood when I wrote this one because I wrote yet another take on Clytemnestra and how terrible she was, which is not inaccurate for this book. The reason this is 10th on my worst, I think I gave this book like a 2 or a 1.75. This is, I really hated this book. I don't remember anything about this book except how much I hated it. I am pretty sure I listened to the audiobook all in one day and I just really hated it. Really hated it. I don't remember anything else about it, except just how viscerally I just wanted to not be reading it. I had a miserable time with it. I did try to refresh myself on what happened in it, and so I looked at some other reviews for it, and I remember like not hating like the relationship between Orestes and his cousin as much as a lot of other people did. Like it did seem to come out of nowhere, but I mean also like I've read a lot worse than things. I also wasn't super pissed about the trial at the end of the book because in some of the storytellings of Clytemnestra and Orestes, that does actually happen. So I wasn't as offended by that, but honestly, I think I just hated how boring this book was. And oh, I remember one of the things, I listened to the audiobook, the narrator, whenever she was doing Electra's part, just sounded like this. It was really cranky like the whole time. And it's like, for a character who's like kind of coming into her own and, you know, behind a lot of the machinations going on, just to hear her talk like a little brat was just really fucking frustrating, and I had a horrible time with it. So there you go. Number 9 on this list, I'm so sad to say, is Model Home by Rivers Solomon. This is horror / fiction. This is following the three Maxwell siblings as they are brought back to their family home together for the first time in a long time. Their family home, they grew up in a suburb just outside of Dallas that was entirely white except for their family, and extremely racist and extremely difficult to grow up in. And their parents have had a tragedy and they are all coming back and now facing their traumas and the insidious nature of the home and what's going on in it and what has been going on in it. Oh, this hurts my heart to talk about because I really love Rivers Solomon. But this one, I had a bad time with. I didn't enjoy it. The writing, beautiful, setting, fantastic, characters. This is where it really started to lose me. They were extremely real. They were very believable. They were very complex characters, but overall they felt a little underwhelming at times. It was, yeah, it's complicated to talk about, right? Without getting into the depths of like what goes on in the book, but there were just sometimes where, you know, the sibling who sort of takes care of everyone and makes sure everything happens, it was just almost always overwhelming and overbearing, right? There was not a lot of ebb and flow to that. And the sibling who was kind of a mess and really struggling with things was just only that so much of the book. And even though all the characters were complex and three-dimensional, it was sometimes just, it sometimes didn't feel like they were those things, even though they were. It's so much of the time they were just, you know, sort of two-dimensional rather than three-dimensional. The plot itself, meh. I didn't really care what was going on. I feel terrible saying that, but I never felt really invested in what was going on, in what was happening. Is the house haunted? Was the house not haunted? Any of that. I really didn't connect to the plot, and the twists, honestly, just, I didn't have a good time with. I thought that they were rather, I don't know how to talk about it in a comprehensive or cohesive way, except to say that to me it left a lot to be desired, and I really feel like it weakened the rest of the book overall, personally. The 8th worst book that I read in 2024 is Nana by Brandon Massey. This is a horror/thriller. The plot of this is Monica's mother has never been in Monica's life, but makes a dramatic appearance whenever Monica's adoptive grandmother passes away suddenly. She begins to take over Monica and Troy's home, and Monica starts to really suffer a bunch of aging out of nowhere. Also, her husband Troy is there making all the bad decisions at every opportunity. The reasons I hate this, Troy sucks. Number one, he's an asshole, but he's meant to be an asshole. He's not meant to be likable, and he is just meant to be, you know, a complicated person making bad decisions. But he was very difficult to read about. And there's part of this it's a little hard to talk about because I don't want it to come across like I think that like either Troy or Monica have to be perfect victims to be able to empathize with them or to care about their struggles, but they were so frustrating to read about, and Troy in particular, that it became very difficult to digest as the book went on. It just felt like Troy was just doing everything in his power to do every wrong decision he could even begin to conceive of. And the same goes for Monica to an extent. She's so passive and it just kind of gives in to all the pressures going on in the book, and that's very real. They're both very flawed characters intentionally, but it just becomes so frustrating. It's whenever she just doesn't take any agency in anything going on, it just becomes really tedious to read. But overall, the biggest issue I had with this book was I am really just sick of men writing about women's aging and the way it impacts older women and the way it impacts younger women. I can't with this. I went on a full rant about this in the video where the wrap up where I talked about this, but it's tired, it's tedious, and I'm just fucking done with it. And that was my biggest complaint. Number 7 is The Restless Dark by Erica Waters. This is a young adult horror. The plot of this one is we are following a group of people who have been invited to go try to find the body or the remains of the Cloud Kiss killer. And one of the people we are following is Lucy, who was his intended last victim, but managed to escape before she was killed. And we're following Lucy and a bunch of other people as they are participating in this. Lucy's trying to find some closure. Other people are there for other reasons. The biggest complaint I had with this one, the reason why it is on this list, is because young adult horror and I don't jive generally. I think there's so much good about it that's not for me personally as a reader because I'm in my mid-30s. But this one I found particularly egregious with the insta-lovey things going on. It was so frustrating to read and just to feel so old and be like, girls, you've known each other for 2 days. You don't need to say I love you. You don't need to say that you like fill every void in my heart. You don't need to be holding on to this person so tightly because no one will ever fucking love you ever again the way this person has in the last 24 hours. It was too dramatic, and frankly, it was just too much for me. Number 6, I believe, is the only physical book I have, and that is Joyland by Stephen King. This is a horror/mystery that is following college student Devin as he takes a summer job at Joyland, a local theme park up in the Northeast somewhere, and the entire book is just about how upset he is that his girlfriend, the love of his life, wouldn't sleep with him But then her very next boyfriend she went out and had sex with after the second date. And that is truly the crux of so much of this book and so much of why I hate this book. I think it's extremely frustrating to read just about a guy who just feels, it's very incel-y. It was very incel-y. It was very like not fun to read about, and I think that it was so frustrating. And also, don't worry, because he's gonna get with hot MILF mom who's way too old for him, but that's what makes it really sexy. And don't worry, her dying child is somehow magical. It was bad. It was real bad. I would throw this, except I don't want to break anything. Next, number 5, I really wish is higher because I hated it a lot more, but 4 other things really did have to just slot in as worse than this one. And this is Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConney. This is mystery fiction following a group of biologists who are trying to reintroduce wolves near a small village in Scotland, and a lot of the locals are angry about it. It's primarily following a woman named Inti, and goddamn woman, you are grown. You need to make better decisions. You need to think your actions through just a little more, just a little more. And also, you are a grown-ass woman. That sheriff is not that hot. I swear to God, you don't have to throw away your entire career for him. It was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. I hated every decision Inti made. It felt like she was just intentionally, like with Troy and Monica, just trying to make the worst decision possible. And it was infuriating to read. I hate it. I don't want to talk about this book anymore. I am happy to never think about this book again. Fingers fucking crossed. Number 4 is There Are Cows, We Are Pigs by Carmen Buloso and translated by Leland H. Chambers. This is historical fiction that I believe is based off of the diaries of a maybe real life pirate. And honestly, overall, this one was just I don't have a lot to say about this one. This one was technically worse. I didn't like the way it was written, and it just felt like it was tedious and boring until it was nasty and vile, and then we went back to tedious and boring, and then we went back to nasty and vile, and then back to tedious and boring, and that was not a roller coaster I really wanted to be on. So I hated this book, and it's at number 4. Number 3 is Survive the Night by Danielle Vega. This is another young adult horror. This is following Casey, a young teenager high schooler who is struggling with addiction and was trying to find out who she is at this very, very vulnerable age. She is pressured into going to a party called Survive the Night that is held underground and by her friends. People start dying around her, and then horrors ensue. And the reason I hated this was, stop talking about that boy. Stop it. Stop it. Your entire life cannot revolve around this boy. Your entire fucking world cannot revolve around this guy that broke up with you like 6 months ago. It's fine. It's fine. Oh my God, the whole thing was so fucking boy crazy. It was so boy crazy. It was like, oh my God, we're making out in this abandoned subway and it's disgusting, but it's also really hot. And then, oh my God, friend's corpse, but oh my God, your friend talked shit about me that one time. That's what I'm gonna run away and upset about. The whole book was like this. The whole book was like this. There's literally a monster chasing you and you're like, oh, you slept with my best friend? Girl, get your priorities right. Jesus. I have a lot of feelings. Number 2 is Flowers of Mold by Ha Song-nan and translated by Janet Hong. This is a collection of short stories really just about kind of everyday life and the mundanity but yet bizarreness of it. And the reason that this is at number 2 is there was a straight up transphobic story in here, and it was so out of nowhere. And it was the only short story I was having a decent time with, because I thought every short story in this collection otherwise was just really boring and like not engaging. I did not have a good time with it, but then to, kind of be enjoying one, and then all of a sudden, bam, just bunch of transphobia. Abso-fucking-lutely not. Number 1 is Boy Snowbird by Helen Oyeyemi. This is a fiction/fantasy. The title, those are all characters in this book. It is very, very loosely based off of Cinderella, I believe. And it is, let's get straight to the point. This has one of the most transphobic endings I've ever read. As far as Oyeyemi's work is concerned, I really do enjoy her writing. I think it's very, very beautiful, very captivating, almost ethereal, and you can tell there's a lot of layers and intentions with it. And I don't know what her intention was with the ending of this book, except to be really gross and nasty. Honestly, it was just really, really upsetting. And it's straight up spoilers. It's so frustrating to read an entire book about complicated people with complicated relationships, and then like the entire complicated nature of your relationship that you're hoping to like maybe fix is completely glazed over by the fact that your abusive father was actually just a confused lesbian. Like, no. If he says he is a man and he is your father, then he is a man and he is your father. And it was really frustrating. I will fully admit that I did know that this was coming in this book. I was not surprised by this book. I used to have a physical copy of it. I've since donated it to a free little library somewhere, but I bought this book several years ago, and then over the course of time found out about what was going on in the ending, and this year I decided to read it so I could get it off my shelves, and yep, that's exactly what it was. So okay, so those are the 10 worst books that I read in 2024. I think last year I did dishonorable mentions, but honestly this year I'm just so tired with everything that's been going on with my house flooding, and Christmas was a fucking nightmare. So I just wanted to do a little ranting, but not too much, and so there we go. There's the 10 worst. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Please feel free to do algorithm things, and I will see you next Friday. Fingers crossed we are now back on schedule. Okay, bye pals.